This is not a piece of celebrity gossip or a recycled Hollywood rumor, but a human story about a woman who brought wonder into living rooms around the world while carrying a lifetime of quiet wounds behind the camera. Elizabeth Montgomery was born into fame, but not into freedom, arriving in a household where success mattered more than softness and control replaced affection. Her father, Robert Montgomery, was a respected Hollywood figure who believed a woman's life should be orderly, restrained, and protected from what he considered moral risk. And to him, acting was not a calling but a disgrace, something unsuitable for a proper daughter. Elizabeth learned early that love in her home came with rules, and approval had to be earned through obedience, not authenticity. Acting, however, felt essential to her, like breath, and so she pursued it in secret, quietly applying to drama school, leaving home without permission, and building her confidence away from the man whose opinions still shaped her sense of worth. When her name finally appeared on a television credit, instead of pride, her father reacted with authority, ordering that her name be removed, as if erasing it could undo her choice. And in that moment, Elizabeth faced a defining truth. The man she longed to impress would never truly see her. Rather than disappear, she chose to stay visible, and that decision became the backbone of her life. Yet the patterns of her childhood followed her into adulthood, especially in love, where relationships often mirrored the same imbalance she had grown up with: men who confused control with care and stability with silence. Her early marriage offered structure but muted her voice, while later relationships brought glamour mixed with harm, affection tangled with dominance, and each time she hoped for tenderness, she found herself repeating a familiar cycle. When she married William Asher, the partnership gave the world Bewitched. But behind the scenes, the authority she thought she had escaped returned under brighter lights and tighter schedules, reminding her how easily love could turn into management. Elizabeth was not fragile, but she was deeply sensitive, and she lived with an intensity that demanded precision, both from herself and from others. On the set of Bewitched, she became known for her discipline, arriving before dawn, staying long after wrap, and halting production when a line, camera angle, or lighting choice felt wrong, not out of ego, but because perfection felt like protection. She wasn't loud or explosive, but her silence carried weight, and when she disapproved, the room grew tense in ways that unsettled men used to shouting to be heard. Her professionalism earned respect, but it also bred misunderstanding, especially when Dick York's health declined and he eventually collapsed on set, leading to his replacement by the studio. Fans searched for someone to blame, and rumors pointed toward Elizabeth, accusing her of coldness or ambition, but she never defended herself publicly, offering only a measured statement that change was sometimes necessary for survival, a comment that left room for interpretation and allowed myths to grow. Over time, whispers hardened into legend, and the idea of a curse attached to Bewitched began to circulate. Stories of flickering lights, moving props, and strange sensations on empty sets, feeding Hollywood's appetite for mystique. But the truth was far less supernatural and far more human. Elizabeth wasn't haunted by spirits. She was haunted by the belief that control could keep pain away. She relied on rituals, carried small objects for comfort, paused in silence before scenes, and surrounded herself with calm gestures because order had become her shield against chaos. When illness finally arrived, it did so quietly and without drama. And in 1995, while working in Miami, Elizabeth learned she had late-stage colorectal cancer that had spread to her liver. She rejected the cold efficiency of hospital rooms and chose instead to return home, where she could surround herself with music, candles, familiar scents, and the gentleness she had rarely allowed herself. In those final months, she burned old letters, including ones from her father, words filled with distance rather than pride, and in a final act of reconciliation, she placed a photograph of the two of them into her diary and wrote a line that revealed the truth she had lived with all along: that even if her father never believed in magic, she still did, because belief was the only way she could keep him close without bitterness. She passed away quietly, without spectacle, leaving behind no grand farewell, only the calm she had spent her life seeking. But the story did not end with her death, and for decades, silence surrounded the emotional reality of her life, until her daughter Rebecca finally spoke and offered a simple, devastating insight, saying that beneath the success, discipline, fear, and love, Elizabeth wanted one thing above all else: to be loved as an ordinary human being. That sentence reframed everything: the intensity, the guardedness, the rituals, and the relentless pursuit of control. All of it rooted in the ache of wanting to be fully seen by the one person who never allowed himself to see her. It explains how a woman capable of making the world believe in magic could still feel unworthy of unconditional love, and how fame could never replace the approval she had chased since childhood. The long delay before Rebecca spoke was not an accident, because Hollywood trains its people to master silence, to package pain attractively, to hide the messiest truths behind polished performances. And sometimes families protect those silences not out of deception but out of shame, loyalty, or the hope that time will soften the truth enough to tell it with grace. In the end, Elizabeth Montgomery's life teaches something deeper than television fantasy ever could. That magic doesn't live in special effects or charming gestures, but in the difficult, ordinary work of forgiveness, in naming grief instead of disguising it, and in allowing oneself to be human even when perfection feels safer. Samantha Stephens could fix everything with a twitch of her nose, but Elizabeth's real lesson is that no spell can heal a wound that isn't acknowledged, and the true miracle lies not in escaping pain, but in facing it, forgiving it, and finally allowing love to exist without conditions.